Good evening. Denmark's opening match of the Euro 2020 tournament has been suspended after the team's midfielder Christian Eriksen collapsed on the pitch. Medical teams gave him CPR at the scene. Within the last half hour, UEFA said the 29-year-old had been transferred to hospital and has been stabilised. Our sports correspondent Natalie Perks reports.
Teammates immediately recognised how serious it was, forming a protective ring around him as medics rushed onto the pitch. Fans could only look on in horror as doctors attempt. The game was rightly postponed. Back in the BBC studio, former players were understandably emotional.
I think football totally goes out of the window right now, and you're thinking about his family, all the rest of the players that are out there witnessing it as well. I actually just got on my phone, I messaged my mum and told her I love her. And I think it's a reminder of how quickly life can change.
The latest update from UEFA is that Eriksen has been wanted to hear. Natalie Perks, BBC News.
Well, our sports correspondent John Watson is in Wembley for us now. And John, everyone clearly in a state of complete shock.
Yes, a terrible situation which we saw unfold in that Group B encounter, as you say, Reeta. The good news, though, the Danish FA confirming that Christian Eriksen is awake and will remain in hospital for further examinations. He was, of course, transferred to hospital where he was stabilised after that horrific incident just before half-time. The match was stopped by the English referee Anthony Taylor as his Danish teammates formed a circle around him as CPR was administered on the pitch. It, of course, brought back memories of the terrible incident involving Fabrice Muamba at White Hart Lane in an FA Cup tie back in 2012 when he was playing for Bolton against Tottenham at the time. His heart stopped for 76 minutes. He went on to make a full recovery. The good news in this situation that the medical teams were able to get to Christian Eriksen very quickly. Obviously huge concern at the time with his partner being consoled on the touchline inside the stadium there in Copenhagen by Simon Kjær, the Danish captain, and Kasper Schmeichel, the Leicester City goalkeeper. But the good news, though, is that he is awake and will remain in hospital for further examination. Worth pointing out as well, Reeta, that the other tie in Group B tonight between Belgium and Russia in St. Petersburg will still go ahead.
John, many thanks. John Watson there in Wembley for us. Now, in the day's other news, Boris Johnson has told the BBC that there are grounds for caution ahead of a final decision on Monday about the lifting of all remaining COVID restrictions in England. Increasing concern about the spread of the Delta variant, which first emerged in India, has led to speculation of a delay of up to 4 weeks. Here's our political editor, Laura Kunsberg.
Inside the fence, the Prime Minister and his counterparts want to work out how to move on from COVID. But it's still a clear threat outside the gates. The virus is growing again. The Prime Minister's hopes of lifting all limits on our lives in a week are burning under the bright sun. Today, Boris Johnson was not denying there'll be a delay. Can you level with people today and confirm that the restrictions are not all going to be lifted on the 21st of June?
Well, what I can certainly say is that we're looking at the data and continue to do that. We'll be saying more on Monday when the decision comes due. But I think what you can certainly take it, Laura, is that the roadmap was always cautious but irreversible, and in order to have an irreversible roadmap, you've got to be cautious.
If your priority is not having to go back on any of it, then waiting is, you're suggesting, the right thing to do.
Of course, you're right that you've got to be cautious in order to deliver what we want to see, which is an irreversible roadmap. But we're looking at the data today. That, again, you've got hospitalizations up, you've got cases up. There are grounds for caution. That doesn't mean that this country hasn't made enormous progress with vaccination. Clearly, what you've got is a race between the vaccines and the virus, and the vaccines are going to win. It's just a question of the pace.
Do you regret allowing tens of thousands of people to travel between the UK and India, where the Delta variant developed in the month of April? You must regret that.
Don't forget that we put India on the red list.
Very late on.
On the red list on April the 23rd.
At the end of the month.
Before the variant had even been identified as a variant under investigation, let alone identified as a variant of concern.
Okay. With a big decision looming at home, The main business, though, is relationships abroad.
Hey, how are you?
European leaders expressing displeasure at how they believe the UK is not sticking to the Brexit deal over Northern Ireland.
I'm fine.
All is not fine on the UK side either. The Prime Minister believes Brussels is going over the top.
To be fair, there's quite a lot of misunderstanding around the EU about the situation in Northern Ireland, and I think that we'll have some pragmatic solutions. And if we don't, it's the prime duty of the UK government to uphold the territorial integrity of the United Kingdom. And that's what we're going to do. And we'll do whatever it takes to ensure that.
That won't soothe the standoff, and it won't be solved here or now. There's tension too over how tough an approach to take on China. Brokering agreement isn't easy, well beyond these shores. Laura Kunsberg, BBC News, Cornwall.
For the second year running, the celebration of the Queen's official birthday has taken place at Windsor Castle. The Trooping of the Colour marks Her Majesty's 95th birthday. Our royal correspondent Nick Witchell reports.
In the quadrangle of Windsor Castle, where 2 months ago the military paraded for the funeral of the Duke of Edinburgh, today the celebration of a birthday.
Royal salute! Present! Ah!
It is the Queen's birthday parade, marking this year her 95th birthday. And for the second year, because of the pandemic, the parade took place within the comparative privacy of Windsor Castle, rather than in public on Horse Guards Parade in central London. Unlike last year's very reduced parade, this year a colour was trooped from the 2nd Battalion of the Scots Guards. The standard was paraded through the ranks. There was intricate drill, closely observed by a monarch who attended her first birthday parade with her father, George VI. Wistful moments, perhaps, with memories of the many years when she would always have been accompanied to this parade by her husband. But this is a monarch who is keeping busy. Last night she was in Cornwall at the G7 summit. Tomorrow she'll be hosting President Biden at Windsor. And, all being well, next year, Trooping the Colour will be back on Horse Guards Parade at the start of the special Platinum Jubilee weekend, when Britain will be marking her 70 years on the throne. Nicholas Witchell, BBC News.
More now on our main story tonight. The Danish midfielder Christian Eriksen collapsing on the pitch during his country's opening Euro 2020 match against Finland. Well, our sports correspondent John Watson is at Wembley for us. And John, just bring us up to date with the latest.
Well, Rita, we understand that a request has been made by the players to UEFA for the Denmark against Finland match in Group B to be restarted. We understand that that could resume at around 8:30 this evening. Seemingly some willingness from the Danish players and their opponents, Finland, to resume that match in light of the improving condition of the Danish midfielder Christian Eriksen. The Danish FA confirming that Eriksen is now awake and will remain in hospital for further examination. It was, of course, a hugely worrying moment when the match was stopped by the English referee Anthony Taylor just before half-time in Copenhagen as Christian Eriksen collapsed to the pitch. CPR was administered very quickly by the teams on the sidelines, and a circle was formed around him by his Danish teammates. Hugely worrying moment, as you can imagine, brought back memories of the terrible incident involving Fabrice Muamba, who collapsed playing for Bolton against Tottenham. But the good news this evening that Christian Eriksen's condition has improved, and it looks as though that match between Denmark and Finland will resume later on this evening, Rita.
Thank you very much. John Watson reporting. That's all from us for now. The next news on BBC One is at 10 past 10. Bye-bye for now.